You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
And welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on your favorite podcast streaming platform like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbay, and Speaker. And last but not least, the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is a proud member of the Chairshot Radio Network. My name is Miranda Morales. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, but I don't do this alone. No, oh no, oh no. I have two amazing co-hosts that I do this show with, and let's bring them in. The first one is the dashing one himself, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how's it going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. How's it going for you, Miranda?
I am doing well. It's coming into just the season of the year where, you know, it's not super dark out anymore and the weather's
I know. Yeah.
It's a beautiful
incredible
time of year, so I'm thrilled. And yeah, I want to bring in this other person in because I know his weather varies all the time. It's the third member of our trio, and that's who?
Who?
It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
That's me. It's actually right now it is very lovely up here in the Pacific Northwest. So, like 70 and overcast in the morning and then sunny and nice by the afternoon. Not 70 in the morning. It's not San Diego.
This is awesome. That's
yeah.
I need to go places. I need to go places, but yes, I mean and this is too. I mean we have an anniversary. It varies depending on a pilot compared to the first episode, but we're pretty much reached the milestone of a full year of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast.
Yeah.
There's no contesting. It's a full year now.
Yes.
The number 52 says it all.
Yes. So again, I say it again, but I know we always thank all of the listeners of this show, especially if you've been listening from the very beginning. A huge, huge thank you for being a listener of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast.
Yes.
It's been our honor and pleasure to do this podcast with you for a whole calendar year through a pandemic. Through no shows, through closed shows, through releases, through hires, through new champions, through all of it. The good and the bad. So thank you all who have listened to us. And we're going to be doing it for another year.
Yeah.
Hopefully many more years.
Yeah, I mean, many more years. But like, we're doing it again. We're doing one more year.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up real quick too is this week, actually, as we are recording, is the new season of Vice TV's Dark Side of the Ring. Season 3 kicking off tonight as we record, tomorrow as you listen on Vice TV. And this is actually the first 2 episodes. It's a 2-parter regarding Brian Pillman. But earlier this week, they announced all of the topics that they're going to be covering this season. And some of them we already knew, some of them we weren't sure of, and we now have a sense of an order. So it's going to be a 2-part season, 14 episodes that's going to be broken into 7 and 7. And from this list, there was a few that really caught my eye. One in particular, and I believe it's the anniversary of this, and that's the Collision in Korea show.
Yes.
And so that is the huge show between New Japan and WCW in North Korea.
Whew.
Ooh, I know. That's just fascinating. It's just fascinating.
Yeah. No, it really was. Like Ric Flair in North Korea. Can you imagine? Like,
I'm surprised he made it out.
I
Ric
always
Flair
get it with
is
North
indestructible.
Korea.
That's the sign. Nothing can stop Ric Flair.
it's true.
Not even, being in one of the most dangerous countries in the entire world.
Only his own daughter can stop him.
She's dangerous. That's dangerous. Other topics being covered in part 1 of this season. Also the Ultimate Warrior, Grizzly Smith, Nick Gage, and the Dynamite Kid. The second half of the season is going to be premiering in late summer, and that covers the WWF steroid trials, FMW, Luna Vachon, XPW, which there's some ties to that, Johnny K9, Chris Kanyon, and of course, the plane ride from hell.
I kept going on about this before the show started. I can't believe there's a whole episode about the plane ride from hell, but
so many crazy things happened though.
At the same time, I'm going to be watching it with a big bowl of popcorn.
Just in awe
Me too.
what they're going to say about it. I mean, it's really going to be, this is of wrestling folklore. Like, this is an event that we have heard only in passing as almost in joking. Some people who were on that plane ride, God bless their souls, are no longer here. And anyone who's left to tell about the story, you just hear it kind of in vague paintbrush descriptions about it. And I'm just curious how they got the information for all of this. Like, who is going to show up on that episode who was actually on that plane ride?
Well, that was actually on the plane ride is a bit harder, but I'm going to be very disappointed if they don't at least talk to Curtis Axel, because,
Yeah. I'm trying to
and
think
that
who would have been there. Yeah. Maybe.
That was one of those things where that was an angle that they used in TNA too. So whatever they were calling themselves back then.
I think it was TNA back in the day.
Yeah.
I guess you could maybe talk to Brock Lesnar. That'd be interesting.
I don't think Brock's gonna say anything. Who else is on there? Well, of course, like people who are dearly departed, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah,
right.
That was, I hope we hear a story about him. And maybe that's where we get that from Curtis Axel. But Vince himself, the stories that we're gonna hopefully hear about his involvement in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's like the weird boss who respects it if you stand up to him and threaten to kick his ass, which is really strange.
Yeah.
Was that also another Ric Flair thing? Was Ric Flair on that plane?
Ric Flair was on the plane, naked underneath the robe, doing the helicopter dick to all the stewardesses. Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot of Ric Flair on this season.
His career may never survive.
Or it's only going to get more popular. I'm not sure.
He is Ric Flair.
Yeah, the only person that might be able to survive that kind of story coming out. Oh my goodness.
Well, if he again, we started this topic with the Collision in Korea, which he was a part of. And we're kind of finishing this topic with the plane ride from hell, which he was also a part of.
He was not, to the best of my knowledge, a part of either XPW or FMW, which are two of the shows that I am absolutely looking forward to as well.
Oh, me too.
As Miranda alluded to, we have people that are connected to the show. So as we get closer to that, we may start talking to some of them about stuff and see what we're gonna do with that. And then I was a big tape trader for FMW stuff. To this day, I am the person solely responsible for handing out the exploding cage the exploding electrified cage match between Hayabusa and Onita to the entire Western Washington. I swear to God, it was me.
Oh, man.
Love it.
A list of part 1 of the season is available out, so you get to see when all of these shows are going to be airing. They haven't released the exact schedule for part 2 of this season, but again, we know it's going to be happening later this summer, and that's going to be some good content to watch. So it's a beautiful, beautiful time to be a wrestling fan right now. And I just be fascinated to see what it's going to entail. But let's get this show rolling, as we always do, with the road back to shows with Brendan.
Oh man, we started off with such great positive energy, and now we have to talk about things like Mexico City still being orange and fans not being allowed to go to wrestling. I mean, it's just
for now, we're getting closer.
Someday soon, I swear. The reevaluation will be happening when the show is going on the air. So maybe, just maybe, next week I will have some good news for you on that. But as of time of recording, Mexico City is still orange. And then we're going to go to Federation Wrestling, which is, oh man, how do I put this? So they are a promotion that is filling people with hope. There's definitely somebody with a lot of money behind this. They have announced several wrestlers that are going to be appearing. I believe we mentioned it last week, where Rush, Dragon Lee, and Bestia del Ring are all already confirmed. I'm going to use air quotes around that because they haven't, they put them on a poster to be part of this. They've added a few more names. Rey Horus, which again, not a huge surprise because he's one of the bigger indie luchadors around that you could grab. But the bigger surprise was they announced Matt Taven.
Yeah.
Who, we will get into a lot of why that was extra interesting, but they, he made a big name for himself down in Arena Mexico. He is a big draw for the Mexican fans. So, it's a good get for them. If this all pans out the way it's supposed to. I'm choosing to be optimistic on this one, but nobody knows who the money person is. Nobody knows who the booker is going to be. So, this could all just disappear in smoke. They're planning on making more announcements. They're going to have a press conference on Friday, which again is after we were recording this. I will be listening to that press conference. Hopefully they will announce more people. They've put up more of those who's that Pokemon images there.
Yeah.
The big one that people are speculating on, though, is one of them looks suspiciously like Diamante Azul, who also, until recently, was very much a CMLL guy. Probably, officially he still is. He still has a championship for them. He still has all of that stuff. But we've got Rush and Dragon Lee on this show, so if they announce him, that may mean that he's planning on parting ways with CMLL, or CMLL may make that happen regardless. So that may also be why they haven't announced him yet, and they're only making us think he might be there because that would be exciting.
Yeah.
He did some vague book posting about the future being uncertain, the end of old things and the beginning of new things. But he could be talking about getting a new puppy for all we know. So,
workers love to work.
They do, and CMLL, unfortunately, being the big company that has direct ties to the government, are the ones that have to uphold the actual standards. So a lot of people that want to work CMLL just can't. And to your point with that phrase, Dusty, they're gonna do what they gotta do.
Yeah, exactly. And from what I understand, the contracts that Federacion are offering are more competitive than CMLL or AAA.
Yeah, that's
new money. That's why they got new money, new investment.
Nuevo
money.
dinero.
Yes.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a big money person. It may even be an American investor for all I know. But one thing's for sure, it's not the WWE.
Yeah.
And it's not and it's not CMLL. So but this is to tamper or to manage expectations. This is a kind of thing that happens a lot in the Mexican indie scene. You get a super indie promotion that pops up. Somebody like in the States we would call them a money mark finances it, and they don't have any clear direction because it's basically the wrestlers all saying they want to do something cool. They can all agree on a couple of cool things for the first one or two shows, and then after that it starts getting a little more rudderless, and usually it falls apart. Again, since we don't know who's booking or who's financing, I can't say that's what's going to happen, but I also can't say that's not going to happen. So, that's what Federation Wrestling has been doing. They've been giving us lots of things to be excited and speculate on. Other people who have been giving us things to speculate on are Andrade has finally announced a match. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's not the match that a lot of people are going to want. Andrade
Does
said
anybody want this match?
Well, so Andrade and the partner who we will name in a second here became friends while working in the WWE, and they did sort of want to do this for a long time. And it's easy if you are a primarily Spanish-speaking person and living in the WWE bubble to have missed all of the news to know that Alberto Del Rio, who is the opponent, is not really in the best position, especially for a show inside the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just to make this fully official so that people can hear the headline. Andrade said that it's going to be a late July. People are guessing right now July 31st. Andrade El Idolo, as he is now branded himself, versus Alberto El Patron. There is speculation that it will be a three-way with Carlito, which Cubs fan put it best, is like, at least that way somebody will be willing to take a pinfall.
That's about the fall guy.
You do have to have that, especially if that's Andrade's first match. There's no way he's gonna want to lose, and I mean, Alberto is pretty. We talk a lot about wrestlers wanting to invest in themselves. He's a pretty firm believer in himself.
That's the nicest thing that I've heard anybody say about Alberto Del Rio in a long time.
But so I saw this interesting tweet, and I'm sure, I think everyone's in agreement of this, because it seemed like it was confirmed that Andrade did have a no compete clause. And the fact that he's not having his first match until July means that he could have wrestled within this period and decided not to. Someone's tweet pretty much like, you had a no compete clause, or you didn't have a no complete clause, so you could have wrestled anywhere, made such a big presence and impact anywhere, and your first match back is against Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah,
and Alberto and Charlotte used to date. Like, you think he wouldn't want to wrestle his woman's ex-boyfriend? Maybe he does. I don't know, the whole thing. Yeah.
It just gets all even weirder. I personally have hope that this is not going to be his first match back, just the first one he has announced.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, actually.
He has the ability to announce other things, but you have to bring the perspective of the world back into it. Like, COVID is making it difficult to book shows, and for people to solidly say, yes, we will have a show. July 31st seems pretty safe at the way that things are going. So
That's true.
They may just be announcing one that they feel safe announcing.
Fair enough.
But I mean, this gets worse because there was also a tweet where Roberto Figueroa teased an Andrade, El Idolo, and Cinta de Oro tag team match against Alberto El Patron and Hijo de Dos Caras somewhere in Monterrey, presumably for Chaos. So, I mean, now they're gonna hotspot this or make it an indie feud, and that does not please me.
No, me either. And Andrade can take Dave Meltzer to task for the things he said about women, but he can't take Alberto Del Rio to task for the things he's done against women.
Right.
And like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna avoid it, but yeah.
I'll say it.
Dusty ain't afraid. Dusty ain't afraid of no one. He'll say it.
I'll bring up the other thing, the other Alberto thing that came up this week, which was Joey Ryan being upset that people from AEW were working at a show with Alberto when they were blacklisted from working with him. And I mean, on paper, I unfortunately have to agree with him because it seems horribly inconsistent to me.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. But also, it's like, I think he just wants people to have sympathy for him. And
True.
that's just
he does. Yeah, that's what he's aiming for.
That's
why I feel sorry for him, and nobody
he was
cares.
part of AEW kind of in the beginning and tight with those guys. And so there's a reason they would say no more Joey Ryan. Like, we know he worked here, but you don't work with him anymore. Compared to Alberto, who, I mean, is unfortunately, like, a lot of American wrestlings just see the luchadors as, like, Mexican wrestlers, and they don't care what goes on. Think about how little we hear of the drama and the outside things that go on in Mexico and Japan compared to American wrestling.
Yeah.
And so it's just ignored. Go ahead,
I'm
sorry.
still going to point out that Psycho Clown has a job after destroying
it's true,
his
though.
boss's car, right?
Yeah. And Maximo.
And Maximo at least got fired.
Yeah.
He got hired somewhere else, but he at least got fired.
Yeah, well, that's what saved Psycho Clown, was he was AAA. And so, like,
No, it's all, none of this is easy and clean. I think that you're absolutely right, the way that wrestling is viewed in the United States and how the speaking up movement really did come through in the United States, but we didn't really see it in other places like Mexico or Japan. It came out a little bit in Mexico, but again, too, I think it is a big culture shift where it is just so deeply rooted in family and tradition that it takes a lot for something to happen. Like, whereas in the United States, it's, business relationships and partnerships can be here one day and next they're not. They're not. But as we're even just talking about, Andrade and, Alberto working together for all the reasons you think they wouldn't, they are, and it's just so financially motivated, and that's the almighty dollar is what they are, following in this. Is it right, or wrong? You would think, especially as you mentioned, a show in the United States. If this was a show in Mexico, it'd be, I think, received very differently, and it would probably have flown a lot more under the radar. But this is going to be a show in Texas, so. Be that what it will, it is something that I think it's also just a big, you just have to kind of notice and take a look at the culture of wrestling and how it is in every country, because that too is going to be how these types of things are handled and received and responded to.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I agree. I just it's just frustrating for me because we had how many years of Andrade just doing nothing in America. He gets his freedom, and his first step is is just...
He just had so much high hopes, especially
Yeah.
after he'd been going out and publicly announced how he didn't get the opportunities, how frustrated he was, and asking for his release. And this was his opportunity to do it. And it does feel, as far as we know, again, you're absolutely right that he could have an unannounced appearance between, now and then, and this may be the safer role, but you also don't want all of this to be for waste, because if I understand taking some time off and, handling your business, but also if you did all this uproar to kind of tell people like you still want to have a full career in wrestling without the WWE and you don't capitalize on your momentum, then it is wasted. We've seen that happen with anybody. One of the biggest examples is Bret Hart after he left the WWF after the Montreal Screws job.
Yeah.
That was momentum that WCW truly could have built on. And understandably, Bret Hart needed a break. I totally understand that because he had his heart broken by WWF.
Absolutely.
He had his heart broken.
Yeah.
However, I think WCW should have pushed a little bit more to use that momentum, and really pull on that so that when he came to WCW, it was a much bigger deal than what it was. But anyways, sidebar, irrelevant, but
we get very passionate about things.
Yes. Continue.
So I think we've covered the majority of that very well. I mean, we'll point out that the other show that I talked about with the tag match would be a Mexican match in Monterrey. So the crowd reaction is going to be very different, and it could be genuinely bringing the brand up for him, at least in Mexico. But, we'll see. I'm going to move on now. My next one, I'm going to actually toss this back to you, Miranda, because there is a big Cinco de Mayo themed show that you are going to be a part of. So I'll let you announce it.
Yes. So Future Stars of Wrestling, based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, will be having Cinco de Mayo on next Saturday, May 8th, and it's going to feature Psycho Clown. Psycho Clown will be wrestling on that show. His opponent has not been named yet, but this is huge for Lucha Libre fans out here in the West Coast that are not in Texas, pretty much, because we don't have as much Lucha Libre running at the moment. But yes, Psycho Clown is going to be in Las Vegas. The show's revolving around him, Cinco de Mayo, Saturday, May 8th. If you are in the Las Vegas area, tickets are available. That does include tickets for meet and greet. So they are running within the guidelines of Nevada's social distancing guidelines and everything like that. They have the measures in place as far as seating arrangements and contact, but Nevada has, just like many states, have adjusted their social distancing guidelines for events. So they are, following all those measures for anyone who is worried about going in person. Everyone is required to wear masks and have a distance between seating. But if you are in the area, it's a great opportunity to not only watch Psycho Clown, but possibly meet him. And if you're not in the area, it is going to be available on the FSW network, which you can find at fswnetwork.com. It is a whole network, just like the WWE network, of lots of content from Future Stars of Wrestling. That includes network exclusives and then hours and hours of previous matches and content from over the past 5 years. The FSW network is available for $6.99 a month. And again, that includes exclusive shows like this one. You get discounts on iPay-per-views and then a huge library of content, including best of matches from now NXT champion Karrion Kross, that was his home promotion, Chris Bay from Impact Wrestling, Zoe Stark from NXT, now known as Zoe.
Zoe, yeah.
Zoe.
Yeah.
I want to keep saying Zoe. I don't know why, but I forget her last name. Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark. So she was, her home promotion was FSW before making the scene on NXT. You also have best of Hammerstone, your MLW Openweight champion, and just much more. Matt Hardy has his own best of, and then just hours and hours of content. So, just wanted to plug in that for anyone who's interested. It's not just, these events, it's hours and hours of content, from the network. But even then, if you just pay $6.99 for 1 month, you will get this show and tons of other stuff. So I highly recommend it.
It's way cheaper than, most pay-per-views. You had mentioned off the air, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, that there was a chance that other Lucha talent might be coming up. Is that something that you can talk about?
The card has not been fully confirmed yet, but as those match announcements come, I'll be able to share them hopefully on next week's show. I think they're still finalizing who's going to be able to be there, so I hope to have more news for you next week.
But they are definitely trying to get more Lucha talent, so
yes.
Those of you that are excited about that kind of thing, this might be a big show for you.
Yeah, so one of the other shows that are part of the FSW network is the Future Stars of Women's Wrestling. CMLL's Estrellita has been featured regularly and will continue to be featured regularly as well. So that we don't have a date for Future Stars of Women's Wrestling for the next show. But I think between her appearance and Psycho Clowns, they are working on trying to have more Lucha Libre talent on future shows, but especially this one I know they're trying to work on. I just don't have the confirmed list yet.
No worries. I just wanted to give you one more chance, and just in case. But so that was our road back to shows. I'm going to have a very brief indie roundup once again. I'm trying to focus. Miranda asked the question off air, so I'm going to just specify it now because I talk about one.
Yeah, no, I think this is actually really cool after hearing you talk about it. So
yeah,
I do. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
My biggest thing, and Miranda even kind of alluded to it, probably because we had this conversation. As long as your promotion is obeying the city and state rules, that is my minimum requirements for the safety standards. Like, that's why we can talk about a Florida promotion, because Florida has been wide open for wrestling events since 2 months into the pandemic. I mean, against my
it does
personal
feel that way.
Yeah.
But it's been a thing that they've been allowed to do. So that is the standard that I'm setting here. So that's why I will mention Coastal Championship Wrestling, because they're in Florida and they have been permitted to do this. I'm going to bring up once again, they had another match 2 weeks ago with Super Crazy, who is always entertaining to watch, and
yes,
good stuff to have there. I always go out of my way to watch his matches because I've got some great car stories for riding with him, so it always makes me smile to think about all the wacky car rides that I've had with Super Crazy. And then Lucha Time has continued to put up some episodes. I ran out of time to get you results this week, but they are continuing to put up episodes on the Mas Lucha channel. I hope to get back to having results for that soon. But that is the indie roundup, and we will get back. Definitely want to keep throwing Lucha Time into the mix because they're still trying to do big moves in this year, and Masked Republic has something going on with them, but Kevin won't tell me what yet.
Yeah, it's even a secret from us, so
yes,
it's very mucho misterioso.
Yes, that's why you got to keep on listening, because one day we'll get the information, and you'll want to be listening when we do. Thank you, Brendan, for both the road back to shows and the indie roundup. We're going to provide our information at the end of the show. If you are interested in sending us any content for the indie roundup, we'd love to listen and watch independent wrestling shows happening that involve Lucha Libre. So, again, make sure you stay tuned to the end of the show to get our social media information to reach out to us. But up next, we're going to kick it to Denise Salcedo. That brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a big thank you to Denise Salcedo giving us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, we have This Week in WWE with Dusty.
Yeah, well, we actually had some good news in WWE this week. Turns out, since the pandemic has started, basically, John Laurinaitis has been the producer for both SmackDown and Raw, the head producer, and that's why it's just been awful. But now we have, Johnny, he's awful. And I feel, apologies to Johnny Ace if you're listening. Sorry, pal. But yeah, but Jason Jordan, formerly of American Alpha, was promoted to be producer of both shows. And so hopefully, as soon as they said that, I was like, oh, that explains the abysmal women's booking. That explains everything. So hopefully we'll see some good changes from that. And we actually had a great match on SmackDown last Friday. We had Rey and Dominic Mysterio against Alpha Academy with Chad Gable and Otis. This was a solid tag team match. I really enjoyed the pairing. Chad Gable's work with Dominic was amazing. Dominic looked amazing. There was a great moment where Dominic did a baseball slide into a powerbomb destroyer thing off the apron. It was incredible. Otis, we mentioned this last week, is a great base for Rey Mysterio, and it finally feels like this feud has started to benefit the Mysterios in some way. It's not as one-sided as it was. They're really looking good. My only complaint in the match is the near falls. Like, we've become conditioned to know Rey is not going to win unless he hits that 619 and the frog splash. That's just how every Rey Mysterio match ends. And so it would be nice to see him get a win with the Destroyer or something, once in a while. Like, we saw Destroyer in the match. It would be great to see him get a win with the Destroyer, just so we don't anticipate that it's not over until we see the 619 into the frog splash. Otherwise, though, this was a fantastic match, especially for WWE. Highly recommend checking this out if you're a Rey Mysterio fan. Then Monday, we had Monday Night Raw. First up, we had Sheamus and Humberto. Last week, Humberto just kind of took a beating from Sheamus. He showed up again this week after Sheamus issued an open challenge, but not for the belt. And Sheamus tried to get the cheap shot on Humberto again, give him the same beating as last week, but Humberto studied the tapes. He knows what to do. He figured out how he's going to counter Sheamus. He turns it around in his favor. There was an amazing suicide dive that sent Sheamus over the announcer's desk, and he walked out of the arena without looking back. Very cool moment for Humberto. Very good spot for him. I'm interested in this feud with Sheamus. Like, it's a interesting juxtaposition of styles and talent, but it was exciting to me. It left me wanting more. So that's like the main thing you can hope for. Yep. And then we had Garza show up again to give Nia Jax some roses, and she uses them to assault Mandy Rose. She just walks by, kind of punches her with the flowers. I'm still not sure what this is building to, but at least we get to see Garza on TV. Reginald was there, so it doesn't feel quite as much like we're shoehorning him into Reginald's spot. I don't know. I guess it is what it is, but it's interesting, and hopefully we'll get something good out of it with Garza. He is consistently the most underutilized luchador in WWE now that Andrade's gone.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
I mean, even Humberto see it. I mean, Lince Dorado occasionally, Gran Metalik, they all see ring time, and we're just not seeing that ring time from Garza. Mm-hmm. Aside from the Battle Royale at the WrestleMania SmackDown, all we've seen him in are these little backstage vignettes with Nia Jax lately, and it's really disappointing that we're not getting to see him in the ring more often.
It's a shame, really.
Yeah.
He's unlike Metalik, who I have all the faith in his in-ring abilities. Garza is the total package, and it's just a shame that they're not using him for any of that. Like, I get it. If you are a little worried about his in-ring abilities, maybe you just have him talk for a little while. But if you're, there's no way that he's oozing charisma. He
absolutely
use that turn of phrase. So there's just, it's a shame that he's not being used.
I mean, it even was a missed opportunity during the build-up to WrestleMania where he wasn't partnered with The Miz and Morrison.
Right, yeah, that looked like that was inevitable.
Yeah, that was gonna, yeah, exactly. So I don't know why they keep kind of flip-flopping him on all these things. Maybe they're just trying to throw something to the wall to see what sticks. But I absolutely agree that you kind of don't have to do that with him, but you need to have a clear direction. And I think that's also the frustration with WWE is that sometimes they don't give things enough time and they switch, and sometimes they give things too much time and they don't, So it's so it's just so inconsistent. And it does leave you scratching your head like, why this? Why is he not in an actual program when we're actually seeing, the buzz around Humberto Carrillo after his match this week, the biggest buzz I've seen about him.
Yeah, it's the most anybody's talked about him since the Aleister Black and everything when they teamed up with Rey Mysterio last year. This is the biggest buzz he's had, and people loved it, and it was just because he had a reason. There was a motivation, and people enjoy seeing that motivation, and it's,
So it's for what you're seeing right now seems to be working with Humberto that they could have done with Garza as well. And for some reason, I mean, I think understanding because of the fact that he's a total package and the fact that he can actually do promos and vignettes and he's a good speaker, they're of course utilizing him for that. But because, you know, that is where they see the money in him right now and not in a ring, it's surprising.
Yeah, it's very surprising. To swing back, first off though, I want to say we do seem to have this air of hope now that we've got I don't want to go as far as saying Laurinaitis was awful. I think he's out of touch, and I think that maybe Jason Jordan, being a bit younger and having wrestled recently, it might be able to pull more of that out of people, and so maybe we'll get something better in that direction. But I also wanted to swing back around with the Rey Mysterio thing where you're talking about the pattern for his finishes. When he was the most popular, he was finishing people with schoolboy roll-ups and hurricane runners. Like that was, like it was that quickness, that element of I can hit you from out of nowhere, and that's the Rey that I miss. So, I mean, hopefully they pass it on to Dominic and he starts winning that way.
That would be cool, yeah.
But I think it's also different because there's a big size difference. I think with the roll-ups and the hurricanranas was a way, kind of the surprise of his size being so small, where Dominic is much taller.
Yes,
I think that would be, I mean, though I still feel like it's a good moveset, I think it just wouldn't have that same impact with Dominic.
No, I want to see a fresher look for the Mysterio family.
True. Very true.
Yeah, no, going back to what worked was my first thought. I just thought of it when Dusty was mentioning how we've been programmed to know what a Rey Mysterio match looks like.
Yeah, it's true though. Like that's why I miss it. Like he used to be kind of the element of surprise was his thing, you know, and now he's become formulaic, and part of it's age, I'm sure. But I do miss that, you know, that element of surprise, the excitement that anything could happen. And you know, maybe part of that was WCW versus WWE. I know they like to hit all their spots, but
he did it in the WWE too. So
that's true.
When he was winning championships and when he was the giant killer and all those kind of things, he was out of nowhere wins. It wasn't a by the number sort of thing. It was until much later that they decided must hit the 619 every match, and then the frog splash at least every other match.
Yeah, it's like an essential part of his thing, but it would really do a lot for him to have that element of surprise back, that anything could happen. And well, Mike, it's almost unrelated to Rey Mysterio because you see it everywhere now, but it would be cool to see the Destroyer as a finisher once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, like very cool move. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, WWE, what can you do?
We just cross our fingers and hope every week.
Yeah, well, one of these weeks it'll be perfect, and I will kiss their ass mightily. So.
Oh man. Well, I think if we're alive at that point, that's the problem. I don't know if we'll all be on this earth anymore. But anyways, going through full optimism, Desi, why don't you take us through this week's AEW too?
Yeah, first up on Monday, we had AEW Dark Elevation. And our highlight match for Dark Elevation is Rey Fenix versus Chucky Taylor. Unlike a lot of the Phoenix we've seen, this isn't the match of the year Phoenix that, you know, has been, you know, tearing it up on TV. But it makes sense that he's going to take it easy on a YouTube show. And so, you know, you kind of go into it knowing that, but this was awesome. Chuck Taylor is a great wrestler, but Rey Fenix, we mentioned this, he's just so quick and spectacular and inventive, and it's just too much for Chuck in this match. After an appearance by Alex Abrahantes and Orange Cassidy that featured Penta kicking Orange Cassidy's head all the way to Wednesday Night Dynamite, and Phoenix had a moment that went a bit viral on social media. He gets the pin and he rolls it into a pose that can only be described as like adorable. And I mean, it was really cool.
I was gonna say, it reminded me of Friendship in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it till you said that, but it's true.
Okay.
That reminded me of La Sombra doing the hands on his chin thing in the middle. That gif that is super popular.
Yes. I mean, it was just such a cool moment for Phoenix. And I've mentioned before about Pentagon's charisma, but Phoenix was dripping with charisma in this match.
Yes.
And so that was really cool and a nice juxtaposition to the amazing athlete that we see on a more regular basis. So I hope that AEW lets him get more of this personality out. I really enjoyed this match, really enjoyed the personality that Phoenix got out in it. Fantastic. And next up, we had Tuesday Dark, and in his first AEW appearance, which apparently there's going to be more, we had Marty Casaus, formerly Marty the Moth Martinez, versus the Machine Brian Cage, and a nice little Lucha Underground reunion. Marty looked great. He looks a lot better than he did in Lucha Underground. It's incredible. His facial expressions are amazing. His size was really impressive, even next to Cage. This was a real Hoss match, like a Hoss-type wrestling match, and I loved it. It gave Marty a great foundation to display his offense and his personality. They both got in a ton of work, but it still wasn't enough to beat Cage. Once he hits the drill claw, Cage picks up the big win before his match with Hangman Adam Page on Dynamite. And that leads us to his match with Hangman Adam Page. Oh, sorry, Brendan, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. And that leads us to his match on Dynamite with Hangman Adam Page. And first of all, they kept referring to Cage as the Machine Brian Cage, the Machine Brian Cage. I love that. If you watch Lucha Underground, you remember that. Mm-hmm. Very cool that they have been using that lately. And Taz kept teasing on Dark that after Ricky Starks had his match with Hangman Page, they discovered his weak spot and that Brian Cage was going to win the match. And for once, at least, Taz wasn't working us. Before the match, during Hangman's entrance, Team Taz ran up. They attacked from behind. The Dark Order showed up to try to help even up the numbers, but Cage still gave Hangman a huge power bomb onto the apron before the match ever started. Then he throws him into the ring and starts yelling, "Ring the bell!" And then he dominates the entire match. Much like the night before on Dark, this is the Cage we remember from Lucha Underground. Like, it is so good.
Yes.
It was a very surprising win, and it's multifaceted. I think it probably helps keep Hangman out of the title picture for Double or Nothing and kind of delay that underdog spot, because what are you going to do if he's number one contender? It's pay-per-view. Kenny Omega is a huge thing, but it's also a huge win for Brian Cage. Like, this was something he really needed, was a big win like this. So it was a really interesting match, both for the win-loss rankings and for Double or Nothing. That's only 4 weeks away, and so I think this could be the feud we see Hangman Page and maybe even Dark Order in. I think it's building to that at Double or Nothing, hopefully. And go ahead.
I think that's what we're getting is Dark Order versus Team Taz. Because Dark Order is very face right now, and Team Taz is super heel. And it'd be great. Like, there's just such a interesting clash of the styles and sizes and everything. I'm all here for it. AEW does multi-man matches so well that I would be excited for that. And they got to, because everybody's in a faction.
Yeah.
That is super true. But after the Cage Hangman Page match, we had Orange Cassidy versus Penta El Cerro Miedo. This is exactly the kind of wrestling that I love. It was easily the match of the night for me. Hands down, no contest match of the night. Like, so good. There was so much showmanship, especially early in the match. Orange Cassidy keeps putting his hands up to try to put his hands in his pockets, and Pentagon just refuses to let him, slaps his hands away, gives him more and more Cerro Miedo. Finally, he takes off the glove and smears, like, all over, fingerprints and whatnot on Orange Cassidy's sunglasses doing the Cerro Miedo. It was just fantastic. Great spot in the beginning that kind of showed their styles, and the blending of those styles was what was really interesting to me as well. There were a lot of moments I loved, like Cassidy going for the Tornado DDT, working a more Lucha type move and style, but Penta was able to reverse it into a brain buster. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah. If you wanted to see Alex Abrahantes, he was there, and he tried to help Penta get the win. He came in with the distraction, had the microphone, tossed it in, but Trent was able to grab the microphone and hit Penta with it, and after his help, Orange Cassidy picked up the win, making best friends 1 for 3 against Death Triangle. And so, I mean, 2 out of 3 is not bad for Death Triangle. I'm really excited to see where this goes. We've mentioned this before. It was building to a street fight last year. I kind of hope that's where it's building to this year. We're seeing more and more of Chris Statlander at ringside with Best Friends, and she's part of the group now. I don't know if we'll see somebody come in to kind of neutralize her presence with Death Triangle, but anything's possible at this point, and I'm excited for whatever we get. I think that the possibilities with this are wide open, and the individual matches we've gotten so far are exciting.
So this, again, for me, is the same thing as that street fight that Best Friends had, the first one, where it was magical, and I loved everything about it right up until the end, and that finish just took me out of it. They're supposed to be the good guys who will fight a little dirty, but they did the whole thing where Trent stole the microphone, hands it to Orange Cassidy for the super punch while the ref is not looking. So they're just openly using heel tactics, which just really does not cement the feud for me, and it just really kind of distracted me from what was otherwise a great match.
Yeah, it did feel odd. I mean, it was a strange ending to the match, but I don't know, it's more like a WWE thing at this point. We've been conditioned to cheer the heels and boo the faces in a weird way. And so when people display those heelish tactics, people get excited. Like, that really, it got a reaction from the crowd. And so as much as I didn't like it, I can see kind of what they were going for with it. And yeah, hopefully, like you say, everything except the ending. It was a great match. The work in it was fantastic, but the ending was...
I just feel like that seems to be a weakness with the Best Friends group. Like, they have really solid matches with sloppy or confusing endings, and I hope that's not what we continue to see if this is the feud we're getting.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what happens with it when Pac comes back too. The one-on-one matches are getting a little, I feel like we've kind of expended our options here one-on-one, and so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
And the obvious option to add to Death Triangle for a lady is no longer in the company, so I'm not sure. But,
Yeah.
And I think it's that for some, they have feuds that some of them go on for weeks, some of them just 1 week. So, I think too, we may be planning for something that may not be as long term as we think it may be. I don't know. It just, they only built up Penta and Cody for 2 weeks when that could have easily been something they went much longer with.
And it felt like it was going to, there were really some harsh words in there, and it just kind of fizzled out.
That goes back to this weird roller coaster booking that they do with the middle card. Like, if you're the heavyweight champion or the tag team champions, you get relatively consistent booking, but everybody else is like, you get a little mini push and then you die off.
Well, yeah, because those are also all the EVPs, so it's a lot easier.
I wasn't gonna say that out loud.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Lucy ain't afraid to say it. I won't. Yep. I'm not afraid to call out fucking I'm wrong because I'm not.
It's true.
I mean, up until recently, Adam Page was still doing pretty good on his booking too, which was what makes me very dubious about. Like, a lot of people were really excited about this Brian Cage win. I saw lots on social media talking about wins and losses really do matter in AEW. And to Dusty's point, it was a solid move to drop him out of the rankings so that he's not contending for the title while Kenny Omega is Nova hot right now. But I'm worried that it's just a little mini push for Cage, because that's what they seem to do. Is that here's your little mini push, and then we'll feed you to Darby again or something, and then you'll go back to being on only Elevation for weeks.
I mean, it's true. It's almost just like the beginning of how his time with AEW started. He won that Casino Battle Royal.
Yep.
He hot-shotted for his first title opportunity. We knew that wasn't going to go anywhere. And instead of kind of using that to build him up, that happened exactly that. He's been, kind of just this pendulum back and forth of really hot feuds, mainly still just kind of stuck, with Team Taz. So it feels good to, it seemed like it was very clear and definitive, the road that he's going on at this moment. And they absolutely should with him. He is one of the biggest, most athletic guys you have on your roster. Someone who could easily contend for your world championship. And as much as they're still playing on this Bullet Club, Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley, you need people in between. If this is the feud you're doing the long game for, you need people in between who can be, slotted in as a contender, but also are very believable in the contender roles. Yeah,
exactly. They need to have people who are allowed to stay at that higher level longer. Like, having Cage and Adam Page, I have to be very careful on that because I will confuse the names. Doing a couple of weeks of this would be good, because that will elevate both of them to look like they are capable of being in that top tier. So maybe that's what they do with it, and I'm down with that. Speaking of that, I don't know if you were going to cover it or not, but I also was interested that they are once again pushing Diamante into a singles feud, where it looks like she's probably not going to come out looking that great on it, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You never know what they're going to do with somebody, and their women's booking has been the most inconsistent.
Yes.
Like, out of everything they've done, that's been my biggest complaint, and their most inconsistent work is who they, what they do, and we're started building things, but her match with Rachel Rose, I mean, Diamante looked great on Dark this week, but it, I mean, it's just, we'll see what comes of it, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I did want to mention, for people that are keeping score, that they are doing this. So there may be something worth watching, but it's at the same time, it really feels more like they're going to be feeding her to somebody else to try and elevate that. I can't even remember who it was.
I was going to say maybe Jade Cardwell.
Yeah. I can't remember either. I don't have it in my notes, but I mean, Jade would be an amazing feud. I would be excited for that, but I don't think that they would give Diamante the final win on that either. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're saying, I feel like they could be building her to feed her to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, Jade is the one that they seem like they're really trying to build up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe Britt Baker along the way. Britt seems
That's
like
true. She's really on her way up.
Yeah.
With Thunder Rosa right behind her. And so it'll be interesting. I think I get the fight forever feel from those two, so who knows?
Well, don't forget you could visit luchacentral.com for all of the results for WWE shows like Raw and SmackDown and AEW shows like Dark and Dynamite. Up next, we have MLW. In the news section of MLW, earlier this week, it was announced that their show is going to be airing on Vice TV at noon Eastern time on Saturdays. So I know for me that was kind of an unexpected time frame. The good news is it's still going to be available on Wednesdays on YouTube. It's also still going to be broadcast through BN Sports. So pretty much it's just a replay on Vice TV. It for me would have made more sense that if it aired on Thursdays, right before or right after Dark Side of the Ring. Cause that's really how they got, Vice TV, to quote a man, is getting into the wrestling business. And so why would you kind of double up your content? But, at the same time, it may be an interesting spot to see. I'll be very interested to see kind of what the ratings look like and how much viewership they get. But to me, it's also still great that you can watch it on Wednesdays on YouTube. And, you can get it before AEW, all of that. So.
Yeah. So the Saturday spot to me is exciting because that's an old school wrestling spot.
That's what I like. Yeah. Saturday morning wrestling is kind of exciting.
But also it's a replay at that point.
That's true.
So, how much, I think that the thing is that Saturday wrestling was a thing because it really was like that excitement and thrill, what are you going to get next? And even Saturday night's main event when they had it, it was because it was newer content. So I feel that, and maybe there's just because of the fact that they're streamed on many different platforms that it's, harder to, have it live. But I definitely agree that the Saturday, early afternoon is very much a good tribute spot for many old school wrestling fans who watched it. But now when you get to watch the show 3.5 days earlier. I don't know.
It's true. And there's nothing saying that they won't eventually put a rebroadcast after. It won't be the new one again, to your point, but before or after one of the other wrestling shows, they might eventually do that too. But I'm very excited. I'm excited for this. I wanted to give a little bit of shout out to the Mass Mats and Mayhem guys because they were talking about this, and they have a very active theory that has me more excited, which is they might wind up going back to a PG-13 style programming with MLW.
And that's a good point that's been brought up about, being able to, the fact that they're not tied. Well, one, what they're airing on right now is really just their own, channel and some other streaming sources, but also Vice TV is a little bit more mature in their audience. So I could absolutely see them going a little bit more mature in their content. And I think that would be a great alternative for many fans where, you don't have a promotion right now that's doing a lot more of that adult content. You could say AEW with some of the violence that they do in their matches. That's few and far between, but maybe
they're
more
definitely,
consistent.
Yeah. They're definitely trying to appeal to people with that, but if MLW is, to your point, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that, but if MLW is doing it consistently through their show, that means it will be alternative programming instead of an alternative match, and that's
Yeah.
Well, this week in MLW, as far as Lucha Libre content, we had Buku Dao face Hijo de LA Park, one half of the MLW World Tag Team Champions. Buku Dao coming out of a big win from his mentor TJP, and for Hijo de LA Park, more importantly, Selena De La Renta, they needed a win in the column because El Jefe was not happy with the performance of Mil Muertes, and has subsequently, this was, Selena De La Renta's final chance to make it up to El Jefe. And so the match, though, started. Hijo de LA Park, not only does he wear the traditional garb of his family, but he wrestles in the same cockiness and tone of his father. So that's great to see.
Yes.
And at first when he started the match, tried to gain the trust of Buku Dao, but then just utilized that to give him a big old knock to the face. But there was some really great moments too from Buku Dao. He locked in a little mean, crossface, during the middle of the match. And then Hijo de LA Park was able to, smash in the double knees as Buku Dao was laying in one of the corners. Ultimately, Buku Dao got the win with the swinging flatliner in just a little under 5 minutes. So a very quick match. But I think that's kind of the appeal of Buku Dao, a major underdog right now. And the fact that he got a surprise win over someone with the legacy and experience of Hijo de LA Park was pretty astonishing. It did not lend well for Salina De La Renta. We saw later on in the show, she was pretty much kidnapped by a masked assailant. She had a bag over her head and a masked assailant in a red mask, just pretty much grabbed her and took her into an unmarked car. And so, who knows, what's happening right now with Azteca Underground. Another interesting note is that during the show, MLW showed an article from PWI, magazine that was a layout of Azteca Underground and El Jefe, and they even unveiled a list of suspects that they believe could be El Jefe, which names included, Dario Cuento from Lucha Underground, yeah. Conan, and even Tony Khan's name was listed on there. So interesting with that crossover, or just the build-up that they're utilizing PWI magazine to help, sell the story. But
I thought that was a great touch, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it really is leaving a big question mark to who El Jefe is. Things are not looking good for Salina De La Renta right now, and maybe we'll get a step closer now that she stepped out of the picture. El Jefe will step in himself. Maybe we see this in the show coming in July. Maybe we get this before MLW goes on a little bit of a hiatus. I believe they may go in June. So lots of questions.
I do have an extra little wrinkle that I saw today on Twitter. Selena has changed her name on Twitter and was responding to a tweet from someone else who said, okay, now that we've got you out of there, it's time for you to disappear. And she said that it was, it was a genius move to make it look like she was being kidnapped and nobody's going to find her now. So there could be lots of things. She could just be bluffing. Who knows? But I just thought that was added a neat little touch. I am a big fan of wrestling promotions using social media to deepen the story, because that allows me to stay invested while I'm doing my stuff on my phone, whatever it is I'm doing. I just love this. So I just thought I would mention that. I don't have her name in front of me because it happened while I was at work, and I have trouble taking notes at work these days. But
yeah, let me see if it's changed any on social, or at least on Instagram.
It was like Natalia Class or something, right?
Yeah, something Class. Yeah.
Natalia or Natalia or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. There was also another video of her going into a helicopter saying, I'm done with this, and just jumping into a helicopter and trying to escape. So you're right. There are layers to this that they're adding on social media outside of what we're seeing on the show. So I think that's why the intrigue is still there, and this is one of the better kind of drawn out storylines of who is it, who is this higher power, that keeps people engaged and interested because there's layers to it. So, stay tuned, to see what happens next week on MLW. Up next, we have an update on Masked Republic. Brendan?
Well, gee, we mentioned it just last week, but, the lucha-mask.com released the mask for Andrade El Idolo this week. Dusty said he got his. I got mine minutes later.
Yeah, I got my pre-order. I'm really excited. It looks so good.
It's a really gorgeous looking mask. In addition to Andrade El Idolo, they've got a bunch of new micro brawlers. They've got these really cool looking soccer jerseys with giant images of masks or faces on them.
Yeah, they are awesome.
They're very cool looking. So definitely worth checking out there. And once again, I'm going to also mention Eat Like a Luchador pre-orders because
yes, got that pre-ordered too.
I've seen a lot of photos from Eat Like a Luchador lately, and I'm really hungry.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's a great. For those of you who haven't heard any of the stories, like we've talked to Jerry who did photography. We've talked to Kevin who just tried to make all of this happen. And we've talked to people who wrote recipes. Like, there's so much work and love went into making this book happen. So I just really want to mention, I've been seeing a big push for it again on social media this week. Like I said, it legit made me hungry. I had to go get some nachos after seeing a bunch of pictures. So Eat Like a Luchador. Please pre-order it.
And of course you can get that also, links to Mass Republic on luchacentral.com. Speaking of what else you can find on luchacentral.com, it's the results of this week's NXT. Yeah. We also are going to talk about, again, another great episode of NXT. Some really fun moments. Starting off the night with Mercedes Martinez versus Dakota Kai. This comes from last week when Mercedes Martinez realized and knew the way to get to Raquel Gonzalez is through Dakota Kai. So they had a match, and it was surprising at the beginning where you thought that Mercedes was going to get the upper hand, but Dakota Kai came in quick with a DDT and I believe a low running boot to the face, to the body of Mercedes Martinez. But the real action happened when they couldn't keep the action in the ring. Mercedes Martinez got Dakota Kai out of the ring later on, and that's when we had Mercedes and Raquel meet face to face. And they had some tension, obvious tension between them. And then as, Martinez tried to get back into the ring, Raquel Gonzalez, the brawl broke out and, Mercedes won by disqualification. However, we did see Raquel just throw, Mercedes into the barricade. We saw her just pulling at her face and her hair, yelling at her that she's the champion, this is her division, doing that in Spanish as well, which is like, these are just two women. You have a Mexican and a Puerto Rican coming together, kicking each other's asses. Like, just shut up and take my money. Like, this is like Latina heat all over the place. Like, two women you do not want to mess with, period. And it was so interesting to see Mercedes Martinez on the other side of a beating like that. I mean, they've built up Raquel Gonzalez as this beast, but someone with the experience and with the background on Mercedes Martinez, who is not one that has ever really been that beaten up before, to see that happen was very, very interesting. So it looks like this is the feud that they're going to be going with right now, and I am all for it. I think this is such a great first matchup for Raquel to have, and I think it's a great one to reestablish Mercedes Martinez in NXT.
Absolutely.
I am for it. Yeah. I am for this 100%.
I'm excited, yeah.
Yes. Very excited. We also were supposed to have a NXT Women's Tag Team Championship match that went awry. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon was supposed to face Jessica Maya and Aaliyah. However, before the match, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell came out, and they were just beating them up with flowers and candy that they got. Part of a story, that happened earlier in the night. So that match didn't happen, but we are getting Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon versus Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell next week for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship. I would like to see something happen from this, maybe a title change already, because they've been going back and forth for months now. So I'd like this, unless you start really adding in Jessica Maya and Aaliyah as maybe a triple threat at some point. let's do something or move on. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, even before that, though, during a backstage statement, we had Frankie Monet interrupt the tag champions, the women's tag team champions, as they were being interrupted, and still just pretty in pink. Later on in social media, Frankie Monet put a great Legally Blonde quote on that her social media that just made me think exactly Elle Woods. So she's continuing to do some great promos, interjecting herself in every which way within the women's division. I think it's a great spot to be in right now, because as we just talked about, the championship picture right now is pretty heated and contested, and Frankie don't want to break a nail. Like, Frankie don't want to break a sweat. Like, Frankie can do some other things in the meantime while they fight and have that brutality over the belt.
Yeah, I'm excited for. I'm just always excited for NXT women division stuff.
It's
like,
true. I mean, everything they do, like, people need to take note. I don't know how the other brands and companies aren't more closely studying the NXT women's division, because it's so easy to just, model yourself after them. They're getting it right.
Yep. NXT women's division, best women's division out there, period. I said all the time.
One of the best divisions on TV.
Yes.
Like, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With the main event, we had Legado del Fantasma face the newly formed trio of MSK and Kushida, fondly called MS Kushida. Which, visually it looks a lot better. It's harder to say, but at the same time, visually it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Give me that shirt. So the first half of the match, Kushida and MSK worked really well together with some quick tags between Nash Carter and Wes Lee, and really pretty much up until the commercial break, there was some moments where Legado del Fantasma was able to kind of defend themselves, but pretty much through the first portion of the match, half of the match, it was MSK and Kushida. But afterwards, we did see Santos Escobar working on Nash Carter's arm. And then there came a point where Kushida opened up the ropes for MSK to do some stereo suicide dives. But that's when things changed, because shortly afterward, Santos Escobar yanked Kushida out of the ring and slammed him through the announcer's table, pretty much kidding him out for most of the match. And then from there, Legado del Fantasma was able to play the numbers game, and they were able to really isolate, I believe it was Wesley, and really there was nothing that he could do. He fought really valiantly, while, his other teammates were pretty much out of the ring, couldn't do anything. We did have a moment where Kushida tried to make a comeback but wasn't able to. He ended up eating a phantom driver, while Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza were able to do that double team maneuver and get the pin. So that last image of all three of them holding the belts was something that was
glorious.
Just yes.
Very cool, yeah.
Very, very cool moment. Saw it all over social media, and such a great tease. Such a great tease that, gosh, man.
Yeah, it was that Pack of Wolves stuff that we were talking about before with them, and I'd love to see them return to that form where
yes,
the chaos is part of their weapon set.
Yes, it really is. I mean, we saw it again, just that powerbomb through the announce table, the way that they were able to separate Wesley and Carter, or Nash Carter, like the way that once you separate them, like, and you play the numbers game, that's it. That has been the way that Legado has been the most successful as a trio. And even in the times that Santos defended the Cruiserweight Championship. So I totally agree with you as far as that strategy and getting back to that, and hopefully it be leading to some gold, because that was also both of the entrances with all of the masks, including Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde, both with the kind of Titan masks. Very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So great episode of NXT this week. And of course the results you can find on luchacentral.com. Dusty, go ahead. I know we're doing something a little bit different with this week in Lucha Libre history.
Yeah, it's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre History by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, match of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre, and it's all free at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. And this week we're doing something a little different. This week we're focusing on Triple Mania. And the first Triple Mania show took place on April the 30th, 1993 in Mexico City at Mexico's Plaza de Toros Bullfighting Arena. The main event featured a retirement match between Conan and Cien Caras, and despite being billed as the first time such a stipulation had ever been used in Lucha Libre, retirement matches had happened in Mexico before that. But they were very rare. Like, they happened, but they were rare. And in a huge upset, Cien Caras defeated Conan by taking the first two falls. It was really a shock win for Cien Caras. In the first fall, Cien Caras pinned Conan, and the second fall, Conan was counted out after interference from Jake Roberts, and this led to Jake the Snake Roberts, the same Jake the Snake Roberts we all know and love, to being one of the most hated heels in Mexico. Like, it was a huge deal. He was ultra rudo. Conan would come back a few months later after his movie career wasn't, what he expected it to be, and he feuded with Jake after he and Antonio Pena were able to petition the commission to let Conan wrestle again due to the interference at Triple Mania from Jake Roberts. It was an incredible main event and an incredible start for Triple Mania, and helped get the whole thing off the ground, get the company off the ground, make it financially successful. This was where it started, and I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's the first one. It's the original. You got to see the first Triple Mania. Yeah. So, very good match, very great show. Highly recommend it. What did you pick this week, Brendan?
Well, Miranda and I had kind of not gotten on the same page with this, but Triple Mania has always been a huge part of my general love of Lucha Libre. It is so very WrestleMania with its over the top presentation and all of that. I think if I were to just pick out a single moment or event, for me it would have been the Dr. Wagner Psycho Clown mask versus mask match. And part of that is because I was so enthralled with this idea of this match that I had it on my phone and my calendar and all of that I was going to watch that match. And I wound up on that particular Sunday helping a friend organize a convention. And so I'm doing work for the convention, and I'm sitting at the table with this event on the phone, and this guy comes over to offer me water. He's like, "Do you need some water?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that would be great." And he looks down at what I'm watching, and he's like, "Are you watching Lucha Libre right now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is like the match of the year going on." And he's like, "I think that is the coolest thing I've seen all weekend." And then he goes and moves on to the other things. So that is in a nutshell what Triple Mania does for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'd have to agree. I think just being able to focus on really the WrestleMania / Super Bowl of Lucha Libre is, such a cool way of thinking about how much Lucha Libre has not only evolved, but been kind of the fabric of pro wrestling. Of course, WrestleMania helped kind of establish the big shows, but I think with Triple Mania make it more special within Lucha Libre and Mexican culture. And like you mentioned, incorporating someone like Jake Roberts into the mix was that way of doing that crossover, almost kind of like the celebrity portion of a WrestleMania. I feel like Triple Mania has been able to do that with bringing in U.S. stars. And I think that that's been a very special way of doing the crossover of styles. So that was kind of for me, big takeaway, because I know that also led to a longer history and story between Jake and Conan. But that was one of the more memorable things of having someone like Jake Roberts be a part of that and, lend his support and appearance for that, that helped really bring in like a crossover audience.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, that was kind of when it became a big deal in America too, was around the time of Triple Mania. Yeah. And it's important, just like WrestleMania, its importance in both the financial status of the company and the perceived social status, just how many eyes were on it. It can't be understated. Like, this was a huge deal at the time, and nothing was ever the same. That's what allowed them to become a competitor, really, in Lucha Libre. And so it's just incredible how, I mean, we're still feeling the ripples to this day of the first Triple Mania. And so it's incredible. Yeah. And I think it's an exciting and important event to look back on.
Well, that was This Week in Lucha Libre History. Again, something different where we focused on just one event this week. But again, you can find this day in Lucha Libre on luchacentral.com. And of course, match of the days on luchacentral.com. But I'm not going to tell you all of that. Brendan, why don't you tell our listeners about what they could find on luchacentral.com?
Well, if you're here and you're listening to the sound of my voice telling you about what's on luchacentral.com and you haven't been there, good gosh, you really need to do it right now. Luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of your top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And here it is. Here it comes. It's free, right? Please, we love to say take my money on this show, but there's no taking of your money.
Nope, no need to take your money.
It's free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Well, Brennan, while I have you here, you're here for a moment, I'm actually going to have you jump into CMLL news, because there was a huge news that came out just a few days ago. And then, of course, you have some results as far as the anniversario show. So we're going to get deep into CMLL right now. So go ahead and take it away.
So we're going to save the big news. I'm going to go with the results first, because the hardcore CMLL fans are going to want to hear these anniversary show results first. So first match we had Chamuel and Galito versus Microman and Perico Zacharias. This was a one fall match. You had Chamuel and Galito come out on top. And then second match you had the ladies. You had Dallas and La Yarochita against Amapola and Marcela. This was a Relevos Incredibles match. That's why you're hearing kind of an odd pairing of people. But it should come as no surprise to any CMLL fan that Dallas and La Charachita won that, because Dallas lost last time she was on TV, I believe, and just can't lose too many times in a row. She just doesn't do that. Then we had the Mexican Trios Finals, which had Cancerobo, Raziel, and Virus against Guerrero Maya Jr., Star Jr., and Stuka Jr. Lots of multi-generation wrestling here. Cancerobo, Raziel, and Virus came out on top on that, so they are now our Mexican Trios champions. Then we had Caristico and Mystico against Angel de Oro and Terrible. So that would be the Nuevos Ingobernables we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Caristico and Mystico did come out on top on this, but of course there was lots of Ingobernables like behavior in there, so I don't think we've seen the last of this matchup. I think that's going to be a feud that they're going to run for a while. And then the last match of the day, Atlantis, Euphoria, and Volador against Barbario, Cavanario, Gran Guerrero, and Ultimo Guerrero. The Atlantis, Euphoria, and Volador team did come out on top on this. This was definitely not the match that it should have been on paper. Dusty saw some clips of it. I saw some clips of it. Poor Atlantis is
he's looking his age. Yeah, he is.
You know, it's always nice when you have these older stars that really go, but I mean this the downside of it is sometimes they're gonna have a bad day, or they're not gonna heal as well, and I kind of felt like that was going on with this.
Yeah. He hasn't been the same since he had the knee injury.
Yeah. But that was the anniversary show. That was our big iPay-per-view. They did announce another iPay-per-view, which is going to be the Copa Dinastia. That will be on May 28th. Again, it'll be on the Ticketmaster Mexico site, which does not have video on demand, which is why I didn't get to see this, because I was at the doctor's office when this whole thing started. I was very upset. Anyway, May 28th, Copa Dinastia. It sounds like what that's going to be is a one-night tournament. So you can kind of infer who might be involved and who might not be involved, but I'm sure they'll start making some announcements about that soon. And now for the big news, the one that got me to sit up and go, what the heck just happened? ROH and CMLL have formally disbanded the alliance, so much so that CMLL went on public media to say, hey, we're not working with those guys anymore. There's a lot of speculation as to why this would be going on. CMLL has been kind of shifting directions under new management after all of the management handling had happened. The owner. This is a few years ago now, right, Dusty? Time moves weird.
Yes, I feel like it's been at least 4 or 5 years, but yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
Time has moved, but they've been. There was the initial period of people kind of holding their breath, and now it feels like they're just not serious enough moves happening, is what the majority of fans are saying. Like they don't, they're just gonna let fruit rot on the vine, as it were. I believe that was the metaphor I heard. And so maybe ROH didn't sweeten the pot enough for them, or maybe as other people speculated, maybe it's related to the fact that ROH has a roster full of people who have left CMLL, and maybe they just don't want to have a working arrangement with them anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and Rush, he specifically negotiated his contract outside of CMLL last time. Yeah. So they're starting to be seen as small time and small pay in an odd way.
That's a good point.
There was a lot of conjecture this week about what Mascara Dorada had been paid when he was, Grand Metalik, when he was CMLL champion, like what he made per match. And it was pretty eye-opening.
From a very bizarre perspective too, because that was mostly about Kenny Omega having 4 belts.
Yeah.
And then somehow it evolved into CMLL doesn't pay their wrestlers enough because Grand Metalik.
That's a rabbit hole. That escalated quickly.
Yeah. Well, he had 4 belts. He was one of the he's one of the people outside of Japan who had four belts. at one time, and that was brought up. And then you can't put a fact up on the internet without somebody else going to the well, actually. And that's where money started to come in. And but I mean, it's a point. I know for a fact that a large number of people, even at the top of the card on CMLL, have day jobs. And I mean, you don't hear about that. Like here in the States, that's unheard of. Nobody working even the middle of the card for AEW, which is the closest thing to a large independent we've got, has a day job. Like, they've all gone full time into wrestling. I mean, I don't think even ROH, I can't say for sure, I don't think even the majority of full-time talent for ROH has a day job. But even if you've got belts, and according to that same thread that Dusty was talking about, belts just meant that you could get paid less in certain cases, because they thought that would help you sell more merch.
Wow.
You don't, yeah, right?
I don't understand that logic.
It's like tipping in America, right? You can make more money off of tips, so we're not going to pay you minimum wage. We're going to pay you less than minimum wage, and you'll make it up in your tips. And that's more or less what it is. You're champ, so you're popular. You'll sell more merch, and we don't have to pay you as much. Like, that blows my mind that's where they. But that's more, And I mean, I've heard similar things for AAA. I've heard that the majority of wrestlers in AAA also have day jobs. I can't say it as with as much conviction, but I sure as heck wouldn't be surprised to know that Psycho Clown waits tables somewhere, whatever it is he does. In the mask, that's what I'm picturing.
I was gonna say, I could see him be a successful real estate agent, actually.
Yeah.
So it gets weird, in that respect. A lot of people, so CMLL in most ways, in my opinion, and a lot of other people seem to be agreeing with me, just not quite, they're like WWE. They've got a way that they want to do things. They've got an established fan base. They are, in fact, the oldest promotion in the entire world at this point. So but that also means that they can be a little out of touch. They can think that they can get away with paying wrestlers less because everybody wants to come and work for them. They can think that by doing classic Lucha Libre matches, which, I mean, fans like me genuinely appreciate, but there's fewer and fewer of us in the world, that they can just continue doing what they've always done and not have to worry about it. And that seems to be the case. And, that's the benefit of having an ROH deal, is you could get an infusion of new talent as part of this exchange going on. And obviously, New Japan, who has an arrangement with them too, has been doing that for generations. That's how we got Shinsuke in Japan, in Mexico, and how we got LIJ is because they came to Mexico first and worked with the Ingobernables and brought all of that back with them. And that brings up another question, like, it is the ROH deal was largely to keep New Japan happy. Like, New Japan was like, you guys should be friends. You should hang out more. And so what's going to happen with that, especially since New Japan seems to be perfectly fine working with AEW and ROH. They could easily just start working with them to start poaching luchadors that are already working in the United States and have one less obstacle of getting them out of Mexico. So, when we started talking about this, you guys had a bunch of thoughts, and I've been rambling. So, I mean, if you guys have anything you want to add on this subject.
Well, the rumors that I heard based on it were that CMLL were quite unhappy that several Ring of Honor wrestlers, including Matt Taven, were booked for Federación, and they basically went to Ring of Honor and said, you need to get these guys to cancel the bookings. And Ring of Honor was like, well, we can't do anything about it. We only have contracts with them for US and Canada. And so that was kind of the end of the Ring of Honor deal. And that kind of jibes with them finding out on social media. And the sour grapes CMLL has had lately. I mean, first the Bandito thing, now the Ring of Honor thing. It just makes them look like they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. And it feels weird.
Well, I mean, which is unfortunately always been kind of the vibe I get. Like they will make very ugly moves just to spite somebody else, because I will point out the first Expo Lucha here in the United States had a huge lineup of stars from CMLL when they first started announcing it, which is what got me to buy a ticket, because I knew AAA guys and indie guys, I could eventually see them. They would come to a super indie show and I would see them. But the chances of me getting to see somebody who only works out of Arena Mexico and Arena Guadalajara and a couple, I wasn't going to see those guys. So I was super excited. They announced, after they did that wave, they announced the first person from AAA, Psycho Clown. And then the day after that, they slowly, the CMLL people slowly announced that they were withdrawing from being at Expo Lucha. And I mean, Kevin has his story on why it happened. The internet has their theories on it, but it seems like it's largely, we don't like those guys. We don't want our guys to be around those guys, so we're just going to tell them they can't do this show. And that's been the face of CMLL's publicity to me this whole time. Like, they don't ever seem to do a move to make everybody look good. They do a move to
yeah, just even the announcement that the partnership has ended. That's something that I don't think a lot of people would have guessed that they would have done, or is this thing that you announced so publicly. I think for two kind of people forgot about it, so you could have easily just kind of let it sit, and then if it were to be brought up, mention it maybe in a press conference or some other type of documentation. But they went out of their way to specifically, out of nowhere seemingly, inform the public that this partnership was no longer happening. So even just the way that they announced this seems like an alignment with what you guys are saying as far as maybe some of the actions that they take and how unhappy they've been, or just almost a little bit of the pettiness.
Yeah, no, it gave me bad breakup vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm not hanging out with her anymore. I don't.
Who? I don't know her.
Yeah. It does have that feel, though.
Yeah. So, man, well, stay tuned to this show. Stay tuned to luchacentral.com for more information regarding what this means for CMLL in the future, what it means for Ring of Honor. We'll get into some Ring of Honor news a little bit later on, but huge developments for CMLL as far as this partnership no longer being in existence, no longer happening. But we will see what it means next.
Real quick, I do want to say that Pep on the Spanish weekly show is following up on this very closely. So we have our best guy on it. So hopefully we will have lots of information for you in the weeks to come. But this is all still really fresh right now. So
yes. Well, we are going to change gears. Dusty's going to give us some AAA news.
Yeah, just some quick information. Like we mentioned last week, Raya de Reyes has been announced for this weekend, Saturday, May the 1st. It's in an unknown location, unknown state, so it's an empty arena show, just like we're kind of used to. But unless you're in Mexico, it's going to be very difficult to watch this. We chatted amongst ourselves in the Lucha Central group about it, and the consensus is that it's just going to be too difficult to track it down to do a live stream or anything. And so, yeah, difficult show. Hopefully we'll get to see it sooner rather than later. The card has 5 matches. First up, we have Dinastia versus Toxin, Aramis, Latigo, and Ariz. Second, we have Octagon Jr. versus Taurus and a mystery competitor in a triple threat for the vacant AAA Latin American title. Our third match of the card is Fabi Apache, Lady Shani, Flamer, Cheek Tormenta, Lady Maravilla, and a mystery competitor for the Reina de Reinas vacant title. And then our Rey de Reyes match is Laredo Kid, Tejano, Murder Clown, Aerostar, Drago, Abismo Negro Jr., Io del Vikingo, and Miss Disease Jr. And our final match is Pagano and Psycho Clown versus Chessman and a mystery competitor. It's a really stacked card. It's exciting. Yeah. I hope we get the chance to see it. If you look around, you may be able to find it this weekend. Who knows? I'm hopeful, but I'm not presumptive. And then also in AAA news, we had Daga dropping his belt. He announced on Saturday that he was dropping the Latin American Championship due to both travel issues and because he felt there was no one for him to defend it against. But earlier in the pandemic, he was living in Tijuana. He appeared at Triple Mania. He was there, but he hasn't been seen since then. He and Tessa may be living on this side of the border now. There's kind of some rumors, that she might be joining a wrestling company, so who knows where they're at. There's been no real word on if this is the end of the line with AAA for Daga or just the end of him being champion. But it'll be interesting to see what happens and see where this goes, especially with Federación now forming. Daga was a member of La Rebelión originally, so it wouldn't be out of line to see him kind of go do his thing with Federación too. It's just, a lot of possibilities out there and a lot of unknowns in Mexico at the moment, and AAA is not immune from that, so it will be exciting to see what comes of this.
Yeah, hopefully one of us will be able to catch the show this weekend, so, if you're really excited to see it, just reach out to us on the socials, which will drop later, and if we've got it, we'll cue you in on the down low. We're not gonna put this on blast because it'll get taken down right away.
Yeah. Exactly. But I'm sure information will be available as far as match results will be available on luchacentral.com.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that Pep will just be magically there somehow.
Yes.
So.
Well, we talked about Ring of Honor earlier this week, Brendan. We do have a brief update on Ring of Honor this weekend and Ring of Honor in particular.
Well, yeah, so we had our payoff lucha match. We had I keep wanting to call them Violence Forever, but that's the MLW tag team.
So many violent names. Literally, yes. We just talked about this. Violent by design, violent. Violence Unlimited. That's what it is. Yeah. Violence Unlimited.
Violence Unlimited. Yeah, there it is. That's Brody King's group. So we had Brody King and Tony Deppen and Gage in this match against LFI. And as you can imagine, because violence is on one side of the table and ungovernable is on the other side of the table, this match didn't really. I mean, the bell rang. That was.
I don't think I've ever heard a match being like, "Well, the bell rang." of the review.
It started. But, I mean, it started before the bell rang. They started brawling. The bell rang. They brawled. Then they, it was just mass chaos. It is if you were looking for a Lucha Libre technical match, this was not going to be it, even though honestly, both sides could do really good scientific wrestling if they wanted to, but they were out to just destroy each other, and they were tearing apart the ringside area. Eventually, time limit was called, and then, of all people, the Foundation came out and started beating more people up. Like, again, this goes back to me not liking this booking of having the faces and the really, I want to purify wrestling come out and go, oh, well, let's get involved in this brawl too. Yeah. But yeah, so you ended the show with all three factions just brawling and like, I mean, that's where they were still fighting when we went off the air. For all I know, they're still fighting.
They could be fight forever, taken, literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
But it's very fun. It's forwarding that they're doing this brawl, which is going to be 3 ways now, and the Foundation is going to have there's going to be a very interesting storyline, in my opinion, of where are they going to draw the line of what is too far. And then of course LFI is probably not going to have any qualms about that line. So, good times. So yeah, that was our episode this week. That was our main event. Then on Wednesday, as we talked about last week, they started the Women of Honor show, and there were I believe it was all Texas women.
Yeah, I was going to say that's something that Maria Kanellis, when she was doing press for Women Division Wednesday, mentioned that they're utilizing a lot of wrestlers from Texas. So that is a hub right now for not only wrestling but women's wrestling, because we've seen Texas wrestlers in AEW, in NWA. So it's a good time if you are a female wrestler and you're, looking for a hub. It seems like Texas seems to be, the next hub in wrestling.
Well, yeah, and specifically what I was getting at is these 3 of the 4 of them have been mainstays at Mission Pro. So I think they were all 4 from Texas, but 3 of the 4, Lainey Luck and Roxy, they've been doing Mission Pro Wrestling. They are either being directly trained by Thunder Rosa or they work with Thunder Rosa, so they are all lucha trained.
Yeah.
It was a tag team match, 2-on-2, Max the Impaler being the odd woman out. She did not wrestle very lucha at all. But with a name like Max the Impaler, you kind of don't expect
You get
that.
the gist, yes. So, but it was great to see, the show back. Great to see, just the debut and really being able to showcase, some independent talent that, again, for some people they're familiar with, for others not. So I think it was a good start to, this new chapter in the Ring of Honor Women's Division.
Yeah, it's a fun match for sure. It's only 15 minutes because tag team matches in ROH are only 15 minutes. So it's an easy thing to sneak in, like, in between video games or whatever it is you guys are doing in lockdown these days. So totally go check out that match. But yeah, we're going to have more of LFI in the upcoming weeks. So ROH is probably going to look really big on the Lucha front in the very near future.
So for the final segment of this week's show, we're going to be talking about Impact Wrestling. And we had the Rebellion pay-per-view this past Sunday where history was made. Before we get into the main event, a few notes. We had a triple threat match for the X Division Championship. TJP versus Josh Alexander versus champion Ace Austin. This match itself, again, classic, but really, really good way to start this pay-per-view as far as the X division. A very interesting win for some people who may think about this. But Josh Alexander won the match, by ankle lock, and getting the win, becoming the new X Division champion. This is his first singles title in Impact Wrestling, so a former tag title holder, longest reigning tag team champion with the North, but this is his first singles title. So again, I mean, you see classic TJP with the Mamba Splash, trying to deliver it, more than once, with the distraction of Madman Fulton and, Ace Austin still just being ridiculously fast and quick and smart. So really just dynamic match. And I think it's a great way to crown a new champion. I'm a big fan of Josh Alexander and the work that he's been doing in his singles run, and I think he'll be a great X Division champion. We also had an 8-man tag team match, Violent by Design, versus James Storm, Eddie Edwards, Willie Mack, and Chris Sabin. The big note from this match was the debut of W. Morrissey, who took the place of Eric Young, formerly Big Cass of the WWE. And he looked great in this match. He was actually the person who earned the pin for his team. Unfortunately, Willie Mack was on the opposite end of a big-ass boot from Morrissey and took the pin. So that was where we got to see Willie Mack during the Rebellion pay-per-view. Not a whole lot, but, still being able to get featured on this big pay-per-view is great. And again, always a positive attitude. We did get to see him again a little bit during the title versus title match. He came out with Rich Swann in his corner. Kenny Omega came out with the Good Brothers and Don Callis. And this story was all about, that very big underdog with Rich Swann really doing his best to throw everything that he had at Kenny Omega. But Kenny had really still this cocky attitude throughout the entire match. Even though he got hit hard, I think that and we all knew how this match was going to end. But you could see in the way that he kind of tried to draw Rich towards him and kind of, play mind games with him, that Rich came out with everything that he had. But it was towards the middle and the end of the match where you could see he was just exhausted. And with a series of V-triggers to the head and neck of Rich Swann, that just really was the final pieces of the puzzle for Kenny Omega, where he was able to land the one-winged angel for the win and become the Impact World Champion. So he is now, as mentioned earlier, the belt collector. He now has 4 belts between the AEW World Championship, the AAA Mega Campeon, and then the Impact World Championship, plus the TNA Heavyweight Championship. So he has lots of belts. And I think for most fans, we knew that this was what was going to happen. Not many people are surprised, but also I think not very many people there's a mix of people who are happy for Kenny, but aren't really thrilled for what this means for Impact Wrestling. We did have Impact this week on Access TV, where, Impact Management came out, Scott D'Amore, really saying a few interesting points. One was that there was no rematch clause between Rich Swann and Kenny Omega. So Rich Swann was not granted, at this point, has not been granted a rematch for the Impact Championship. Also, that they are going to be doing a number 1 contenders match, and they are having it a 6-way number 1 contenders match that's going to be held at Under Siege. And over the next few weeks, we are going to see the qualifier matches to determine who's going to be part of that 6-way match. And so we are looking for pretty much, it seems like you're going to have this number 1 contenders match, and then whoever wins that will be the one facing Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship. And so we're going to see that over the next few weeks. One of those matches that have already happened this week was Chris Bay versus Jake something, in which Chris Bay won, and so he's already included in the match. And then the other thing too about this week was that Scott D'Amore was teasing that if Kenny Omega did not show up on this week's Impact, he was going to get stripped of the Impact World Championship, which left people, including myself, to believe that's how they're going to take the title off Kenny. But no, he showed up at the very end and attacking Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan. That led to Finjuice coming out because the Good Brothers were on Kenny's side. So for Under Siege, we are going to get Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Eddie Edwards and Finjuice. That has already been established. Another big moment, an announcement that came from this week's show is that El Fantasmo is going to be making his debut next week on Impact. So Impact's partnership with New Japan seems to be going very strong.
Yeah.
On the other hand, as far as what we're at with AEW, I think there was still this hope that, through the build-up and even when Kenny winning the belt, we were going to see a lot more crossover. But we haven't. And it seems like the winner of this Forbidden Door series has been New Japan, because not only is New Japan having some airtime on Impact, they're getting some airtime on AEW as well, because it was announced that there is going to be a New Japan match on AEW, and they openly talk about New Japan on AEW television, but Impact barely gets a mention. So it still really bothers me knowing what I know, knowing that this was going to be the outcome either way. It seems like it really is more of a one-way partnership where it is about Impact building the stories, Impact having all of this time, and that really the only benefit they're getting from this is Kenny coming to Impact, but it's not reciprocated. Not in the least. I'm just curious real quick, your guys' thoughts on that now that we officially have Kenny Omega as, the Impact champion and he's on his way to collecting all the belts. Because I think this also has implications for the AAA Mega Campeon. I mean, we just saw it right now. Like, Daga just vacated his championship. The Reina de la Reina's championship is now up for grabs. You would think that someone who is barely defending, you're going to have a big AAA show, and really Kenny Omega is only going to be defending the Mega Campeon once a year? Is that fair?
Well, I mean, you do have to keep in mind that it is a lot harder to get to and from Mexico right now. So,
right.
Unfortunately, I don't want to make excuses, because I think a lot of this is pretty one way. I don't understand how so many people agreed to this. The big silver lining here is they did get an incredible buy rate on their pay-per-view, and they are getting increased numbers and viewership, so they are benefiting, but it's not as much as it could be if they were to have. I mean, we talked about this at the beginning of this arrangement. Like, Private Party looks like an Impact tag team. So why not have them going over there more? Why not have a little more of an arrangement? I mentioned off the air that the rumors are that this is all, there's a lot of very explicit stuff in black and white somewhere that says what they can and can't do. So I'm just wondering if for some reason their hands are tied and that's why they're not doing it. That's the only sensible reason I can think of, but I mean, we're talking about wrestling, so sensible isn't always there. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they seem to value the partnership with New Japan more than Impact. Maybe that they feel like there's more of a return on investment, and they're able to do it. I'm not sure. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to have, and maybe it is a television thing, but I don't know. My gut is just saying how much could it be where, it is a network thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, on numbers speaking, New Japan brings more new eyes to AEW than Impact does. Mm-hmm. because New Japan brings Japanese viewers who don't have access to American cable television, so they may bring that may bring viewers to them that they won't be getting otherwise. AEW is competing with Impact in a lot of ways for wrestling viewership, so they're not necessarily going to get a lot of new eyes by having AEW fans.
Yeah, and like I said, New Japan is the winner in all this because they're getting airtime on 2 different U.S. products.
Yep. And they have their own U.S. show, so they're, which falls right into what their branding was going to be before the pandemic happened. They wanted to come to North America in a big way and make a strong showing. And here they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic of what this means. It's still a very confusing partnership, I think. That's just what it is. Like, it's not even a partnership, it's a business relationship. And as much as AEW has strove to be, we'll work with anyone. Well, define work. Define what that means. Because, like we see, the fact that the way that they treat their partnership with New Japan seemingly very different than what they do with Impact. That's there. It seems like they intentionally did not want to put in as much effort to promote Rebellion. And also Impact's now championship is with Kenny Omega. We'll be hopefully that he can continue to work. And Impact is different where they do pre-record their shows. So they've already done, several weeks of TV tapings, whereas he could still be fresh on, AEW television. But, how sustainable is that? And really too, think about who's going to end up. The good news is whoever pins Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship is going to be a made man. However, when that happens, it could be something as simple as a month from now, or it's still Kenny's getting another belt because if New Japan's coming into the mix, maybe he has an opportunity to get a New Japan belt, and maybe when he reaches Thanos level, then that's when, the story comes to its conclusion. I don't know. But as a fan of Impact, I'm still worried that their world championship is not with someone who's on their roster and could easily disappear from them for a while he's busy doing AEW things.
Yeah, I think it's good that they did we'll strip him of the title thing right off the bat, because that leaves that door open for that to happen at any time. So it's not going to come out of nowhere if they decide that's what they need to do to get that championship back.
Yeah.
But
still not a way that you want, just because then he doesn't put anybody over.
Nope.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, which is the worst case for them. But I mean, it's still better than not having your championship defended for an entire year because he's too busy doing other things. So who knows? Hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget to visit luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can also check out Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram at Lucha Central, and on Twitter at luchacentral.com. You can check out the Facebook page that has lots of great content, including interviews and matches. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, and I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321, the numbers, 321, T-shirt guy. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. So 321 T-shirt guy. I am on Instagram. I even logged in today. I am on Facebook, and I am all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the hashtag Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Facebook and Instagram, no Twitter. Don't forget that if you are an independent wrestler or an independent promotion, feel free to reach out to us with any videos or content, and maybe you can be featured on a future Indie Roundup segment. And while you're at it, if you're listening to us on some of your favorite streaming platforms like Spotify, Podbay, iTunes, Google Play, you can subscribe, rate, and review. So you can subscribe and get notifications every time a new episode drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating, and you can give us a review. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know things about the show you like, that you don't like, feedback, but also your thoughts on, do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? What's happening? What are your thoughts? We want to know. So go ahead and tell us through our social medias or leaving us a review on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms. For Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next week.